Captain Parkman sat in the control room of the observation station, watching the endless black of space before him. His fingers tapped on the metal desk, a habit he had when things felt too quiet. The station orbited at the edge of human territory, far from Earth, in a place most people never thought about. It was a lonely job, but someone had to watch the darkness and report what they saw. Today, something appeared in that darkness. The sensors began making a sound. Not loud, but steady and urgent. Parkman stood up quickly. His team of 40 scientists and technicians looked at their screens, their eyes growing wide. Something massive was moving toward them through space. Not one thing. Many things. Is that a malfunction? Asked Dr. Hane, the station's best linguist. She stood beside Parkman, her dark eyes fixed on the readings. Tell me the sensors are broken. Parkman shook his head. He knew what he was seeing. Get me a visual. Now. The main screen lit up with an image that made everyone in the room take a step back. 3 enormous ships emerged from the darkness like metal mountains. Their hulls were smooth and black, covered with weapons that seemed impossible. The ships moved with perfect precision, as if they had done this dance 1,000 times before. They had. These were Vithilian destroyers, the most powerful warships ever built by any civilization in known space. A voice crackled through the communication system. It was deep and cold, like ice breaking. This is Commander Kyung-soo of the Vithilian Empire, the voice said. You will listen to what I say, and you will not interrupt. Parkman felt his heart pound. He had studied the ancient records about the Vithilians. Every human knew the stories. They were an ancient species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They were strong. They were cruel. They had never lost a war. They are not friendly, Hane whispered. We gathered, Parkman replied. He took a breath and pressed the communication button. This is Captain Parkman of the United Nations Observation Station. We welcome you to. I said you would not interrupt, Commander Kyung-soo said. His voice became even colder. The Vithilian Empire has discovered your expansion into what you call the Kepler sector. This is a problem. This sector has belonged to the Vithilian Empire for 8,000 of your years. We tolerate many minor species in our territory. But we do not tolerate challenges to our authority. Parkman watched as the 3 ships surrounded the observation station. They did not attack. They simply took position, making it clear that the humans had nowhere to run. The Vithilians are giving humanity a choice, Commander Kyung-soo continued. You will withdraw all of your presence from the Kepler sector within 30 Earth days. You will destroy all of your colonies and stations in this region. You will return to your primitive worlds and trouble us no more. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is an order. The communication cut off. The room was silent for a long moment. Parkman looked at his team. Their faces were pale. They understood what this meant. Humanity had been expanding carefully for 100 years, building colonies and research stations. They had believed they could grow peacefully in empty space. They had been wrong. Hane was the first to speak. We need to tell Earth. Right now. Parkman nodded. Begin the transmission immediately. Include everything. The ship designs, their weapons, their exact location. All of it. What about the ships? Another technician asked nervously. Are they going to attack? I do not think so, Parkman said. Not yet. Not while they are speaking. They are confident. They do not see us as a real threat. This was the most dangerous thing of all. The Vithilians did not fear humanity. They did not respect humanity. To them, humans were insects. They had come here not expecting a war, but expecting obedience. They expected surrender. Over the next hour, the observation station sent everything to Earth. Video recordings, weapon analysis, sensor data, and the Vithilian message. Across billions of miles of space, the signal traveled to the human homeworld. The response came 24 hours later, It was not a message of fear or surrender. It was a message of unity. Every nation on Earth had agreed. Every colony in every system had agreed. Humanity would not leave the Kepler sector. Humanity would not surrender. They would negotiate, but only as equals. Commander Kyung-soo received this response through the communication system. For a moment, there was silence in the Vethilian flagship. The commander looked at his officers with an expression of confusion. Then, something like amusement. Primitive creatures, still believing they could speak to the Vethilian Empire as equals. "Very well," Commander Kyung-soo said, his voice carrying a slight laugh. "You wish to negotiate. This is acceptable. We are patient. You have 30 days. Use them to prepare your surrender. When the time ends, if you have not abandoned this sector, we will destroy you. All of you. Your colonies, your stations, your ships, your people. We will burn your worlds until nothing remains but dust. We have done this before. We will do it again." The transmission ended. In the observation station, Park Min gathered his senior staff. He was a small man, with gray at the sides of his black hair. He had spent 30 years in the military before becoming a captain of observation. He had never expected to see real war. Now, it was coming toward him at impossible speed. "What do we do?" Hane asked. Park Min looked out at the 3 Vethilian destroyers hanging in space. "We survive. We tell everyone what we have learned about their ships, their weapons, their tactics, and we hope that Earth has something planned." He did not know that deep in human military facilities on Earth and across a dozen colonies, something was already beginning. Factories were starting up. Engineers were working. Scientists were studying every piece of data about the Vethilians. Humanity was waking up. The peaceful age of human expansion was over. The age of survival had begun. The Vethilians sat in their ships and waited, confident and arrogant. They had destroyed 47 different civilizations before. They had conquered 300 worlds. They had never lost a war. They could not imagine losing to creatures like humans. They were about to learn something about humanity that would change the galaxy forever. They were about to discover what it meant to face an enemy that would not break, would not give up, and would not accept defeat. They were about to discover their own complete and utter destruction. Dr. Li Ji walked through the massive factory floor, and her eyes went wide with what she saw. 6 months ago, this facility had been a cargo processing center. Now, it was a shipyard. Workers moved between enormous metal frames, welding, installing weapons, building. The sound of construction never stopped, not for a single moment. She was a small woman with intense eyes and black hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had worked for the human space program for 20 years, but she had never built something like this. Nobody had. They were building warships, real warships, and they were building them faster than anyone thought possible. "How many do we have completed?" she asked the facility manager, an older man named Dae-sung. 47, Dae-sung replied, pride in his voice. "And we will have another 100 completed within 2 weeks. After that, we will average 15 new ships per week." Li Ji nodded. It was not enough. It could never be enough. But it was something. Across the solar system, the same thing was happening. Earth's factories were transforming. Civilian production lines were shut down. Everything was focused on one goal: building a fleet that could face the Vethilians. Every government had stopped arguing and started working together. It was the first time in human history that this had happened. But building ships was not the only preparation happening. On a secret military base in Mars, General Hyun-soo was doing something different. He was studying the enemy. Hyun-soo was an old man, 73 years old, with gray hair and a weathered face. He had fought in every major conflict of the past 50 years. He had read every book about ancient wars. He had studied the Vethilians for longer than anyone except the historians. "Show me again," he said to his tactical team. They displayed the images of the 3 Vithilian destroyers that had appeared at the observation station. The Vithilians are confident, Hyun-soo said, more to himself than anyone else. They arrived with only 3 ships. They did not try to hide. They made their demands openly. This tells me something important. What? Asked a young officer named Ji-woo. It tells me they do not believe we can fight back, Hyun-soo said. They believe victory is certain. They believe they are gods. And we are insects. He paused, turning to look at his team. But the Vithilians have never fought humans before. They do not know us. And that is our only advantage. Hyun-soo began to pace. His mind was working through hundreds of possibilities, examining ancient human military tactics, and trying to imagine how they could be used against an advanced alien enemy. We cannot fight them in a simple way, he said. If we build battleships and try to match their power, we will lose. They are too strong. They have too much technology. We must fight like humans have always fought, with intelligence, with speed, with deception. He turned back to the tactical display. The Vithilians have big, slow, powerful ships. They are designed to dominate space battles, because nothing has ever been able to challenge them. But what if we built thousands of small, fast ships instead? What if we attacked them from all directions at once? What if we hit them so many times that they could not defend everything? The team began to understand. They started discussing ideas. Soon, the plans began to take shape. At the same time, in a research facility on the moon, Dr. Eun-hye was making a discovery that would change everything. She was a young scientist, brilliant and focused. She and her team had taken apart every piece of data from the Vithilian ships. Look at this, she said, showing her findings to the other scientists. The Vithilian shield system. I have been studying how it works. She displayed a complex pattern of energy waves on the screen. Shield technology is based on energy vibrations. The Vithilians have perfected this technology over thousands of years. But perfection always has a weakness. And I found it. The room went silent. Their shields vibrate at a specific frequency. Eun-hye continued, her excitement growing. If you can match that frequency, if you can create a sound wave or an energy beam that matches it exactly, the shield will not block the attack. It will let the attack pass right through. One of her colleagues, a man named Tae-young, understood immediately. You are saying we can find their shield frequency and build a weapon that breaks through. Exactly, Eun-hye said. But there is a problem. We only have 30 days. And we need to test this theory thousands of times. We need to be absolutely certain before we use it in a real battle. Then we will work without sleeping, Tae-young said. We will work for 30 days straight if we have to. Back on Earth, the United Nations had called an emergency meeting. World leaders sat in the same room for the first time in a decade. Military commanders from every nation were present. Scientists and engineers filled the seats. Everyone was focused on one question. Could humanity survive? General Hyun-soo appeared on the screen from Mars. Gentlemen and ladies, he said, we cannot match the Vithilians in strength, but we can match them in numbers. Doctor, Lee Ji is building us a fleet of 10,000 small fighters. I am planning tactics that will turn their size into a weakness. And Dr. Eun-hye is working on a weapon that can break their shields. If we execute this plan perfectly, we have a chance. What kind of chance? Asked the Secretary General. 30%. Hyun-soo said honestly. We will lose many ships. We will lose many people. But we have a chance to win. Silence filled the room. Humanity had always been lucky. Humanity had always found a way. But this was different. This was facing the strongest power in the known galaxy. Then, one by one, the leaders voted. Every single vote was the same. Humanity would fight. The news spread across every human settlement, every colony, every space station. On 1,000 worlds, people heard that humanity was going to war against the Vithilians. Some people were afraid, some were angry, but most were united. They understood that if they did not fight now, they would not have a future. In factories across the solar system, production doubled, then tripled. Ships were built faster and faster. Dr. Li Ji worked without stopping, pushing her team to do impossible things. Dr. Yunhei ran her experiments around the clock, testing and retesting, searching for the perfect frequency. Soldiers trained for combat they could never have imagined. Pilots practiced maneuvers that seemed impossible. Everyone in humanity was preparing for war. And through it all, the 30 days were counting down. 29 days remained. 28. 27. The Vithilians waited in their ships, still confident, still arrogant, still certain of victory. They did not know what was coming. They had no idea that an entire species was preparing to fight back. The Vithilians had been the hunters for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to face prey that would hunt them in return. When the 30 days ended, they would discover something that would terrify them. They would discover that humans were willing to sacrifice everything. They would discover that the quiet, primitive species they had come to destroy was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The countdown continued. The preparation continued, and humanity moved toward its greatest test. The 30 days had ended. The Vithilians were finished waiting. Commander Kyung-soo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vithilian destroyer Karmoth. His body was insectoid, covered in a hard exoskeleton that was deep purple in color. His 8 eyes, arranged in 2 groups of 4, all focused on the same target. The human colony, on the planet below. The colony was called New Sol. It was humanity's largest settlement outside of Earth. 50,000 people lived there. They had built homes, farms, schools. They had hoped to build a future. Now they were about to pay the price for humanity's arrogance in refusing to surrender. Fire, Commander Kyung-soo ordered. The Vithilian ships fired their weapons. Energy beams the size of buildings shot down toward the planet. Buildings exploded. The ground shook. This was not war. This was destruction. This was the Vithilians, showing humans what true power looked like. Admiral Park Min watched from the human command ship, the Sol rising. He was not far away. He was watching and waiting. His jaw was tight, but his hands did not shake. He had prepared for this moment. Now, he said into the communication system. From hidden positions across the system, 10,000 human fighter ships suddenly appeared. They came from nowhere, emerging from the darkness of space like a wave of hornets. They came so fast that the Vithilian sensors had barely a moment to warn of their approach. The 3 Vithilian destroyers suddenly found themselves surrounded. The small human ships moved with incredible speed, their engines pushing to maximum power. They attacked from every angle, at once. Commander Kyung-soo's confidence disappeared in an instant. "Defend!" he shouted. "Activate all weapons!" The Vithilian ships opened fire. Their weapons were powerful. Each beam from a Vithilian destroyer could destroy a human ship with 1 shot. But the human ships were not fighting like a conventional enemy. They did not try to fight the Vithilians head-to-head. Instead, they swarmed. They moved. They attacked from directions the Vithilians were not prepared to defend. Dr. Eunhei watched the battle from the command center on the moon. In her hand was a small device. It was a transmitter. When she pressed it, it would send out the frequency she had discovered, the frequency that would break Vithilian shields. She pressed it. Instantly, the shields on 2 of the Vithilian destroyers failed. The energy field that protected them from attack simply disappeared. Like someone turning off a light, the human pilots immediately knew what had happened. They had been waiting for this signal. They rushed toward the unprotected Vithilian ships, firing everything they had. Missiles hit the Vithilian hull. Energy weapons tore through armor. The Vithilians, who had never known defeat, were suddenly experiencing something they had never felt before. They were losing. Commander Kyung-soo's mind was racing. He could not understand what was happening. The human ships should not be fast enough. The human weapons should not be strong enough. But somehow, they were fighting. And somehow, they were winning. Focus fire, he ordered. Destroy as many human ships as possible. The Vithelian weapons found their targets. Human ships exploded in the darkness. Some pilots managed to eject. Some died in the fire. But there were always more human ships coming. More, and more, and more. The Vithelians fired until their weapons became too hot. Then they had to stop and cool down. During those moments, the human ships attacked again. General Hyun-soo watched the battle unfold from Mars. He smiled. His plan was working. The Vithelians were powerful, but they were few. The humans were weak, individually, but they were many, and they were moving like one unified force. Send the secondary wave, Hyun-soo ordered. 5,000 more human ships appeared from different positions in space. The Vithelians suddenly found themselves facing twice as many enemies as before. The pressure increased. The attacks became faster. One of the Vithelian destroyers took massive damage to its hull. Its weapons stopped firing. Commander Kyung-soo realized what was happening. He was losing this battle, but he was not ready to surrender. He would never surrender. All ships, he commanded. Activate emergency engines. We will jump to hyperspace. We will report to the Vithelian Empire. And we will return with a fleet that will destroy these creatures completely. The 3 Vithelian destroyers began to move away from the human ships. But Admiral Park Min was ready for this. He had predicted this response. Admiral Park Min. Admiral Park Min, activate the interdiction field, Park Min said calmly. Hidden on asteroids and space stations across the system, human ships activated massive energy fields. The field created a barrier in space that prevented the Vithelian ships from using hyperspace. They were trapped. Commander Kyung-soo's eyes went wide as he understood. He had been outmaneuvered. Humanity had not just prepared to fight. They had prepared to win. How is this possible? He demanded. But there was no answer. His crew was too busy fighting for survival. The human ships continued to attack. One Vithelian destroyer took a massive hit to its engine section and went silent. Another was struck repeatedly. Its hull breached in a dozen places. Commander Kyung-soo's flagship, the Karmoth, was damaged but still functional. Disengage, Kyung-soo ordered. All ships. Maximum distance from the colony. The Vithelian ships pulled back. The human ships let them go, moving to form a protective wall between the Vithelians and the planet below. The battle was over. 2 of the 3 Vithelian destroyers were dead, their systems completely broken, drifting in space with no power. The 3rd ship, the Karmoth, was damaged but still capable of moving. Commander Kyung-soo's shield was cracked. His weapons were damaged. His crew was frightened. For the first time in his career, Commander Kyung-soo understood what defeat felt like. Admiral Park Min opened a communication channel to the Vithelian commander. You are beaten, sound, Park Min said, his voice calm and clear. You can surrender, or we can destroy your last ship. Choose now. For a moment, there was silence. Then Commander Kyung-soo's voice came back. And it was different now. It was no longer confident. It was afraid. We will leave this system, the Vithelian commander said. But know this. Human. You have started a war that will destroy you. The Vithelian Empire has endless ships and endless soldiers. You have shown us that we were wrong. You are not insects. You are dangerous. And the Vithelian Empire does not tolerate threats. We will return. And next time, we will bring the full power of our civilization. The damaged Vithelian destroyer began to move away. Without hyperdrive, it would take weeks for it to return to Vithelian space. Without power for weapons, it was defenseless, but Admiral Park Min let it go. On the planet below, The people of New Seoul looked up at the sky and saw the battle ending. Their colony was damaged. Buildings had been destroyed. People had died. But they were alive. Humanity was alive. The news spread through every human settlement in the galaxy. Humanity had faced the Vithelians. Humanity had fought them. And humanity had won. But this was only the beginning. The Vithelian Empire would not accept this defeat. They would return. And when they did, they would bring everything they had. The age of small battles was ending. The age of total war was just beginning. Emperor Vartox received the news of the defeat with cold silence. He sat on his throne in the capital city of Veth, a place that had never been attacked, a place that had never known anything but victory. The throne was massive, carved from the bones of conquered species. The emperor was ancient. He had lived for 300 years. He had conquered more worlds than any other Vithelian who had ever lived. He had destroyed civilizations that fought back harder than the humans did. He could not accept the message he was hearing. "Repeat what you just told me," Emperor Vartox commanded the messenger who stood before him. "The Karmoth has been damaged," the messenger said, his voice shaking with fear. "2 of our destroyers have been destroyed. The human fleet was larger than predicted, and they had weapons we did not anticipate." Emperor Vartox's 8 eyes fixed on the messenger. "How many humans died?" "We estimate approximately 5,000 human fighter ships were destroyed." "And how many human soldiers?" "Perhaps 50,000, if the ships carried full crews." Emperor Vartox leaned forward. "So, 50,000 of them died, and you are telling me this is a defeat? I have destroyed entire planets, billions of lives, and you are afraid of 50,000 primitive creatures?" "Emperor," the messenger began carefully, "the Vithelian losses. I do not care about losses." Emperor Vartox roared, standing from his throne. "The Vithelian Empire does not know defeat. We will show these humans what true power means." He turned to the military commanders who stood in the throne room. "How many ships do we have in our military?" "Approximately 1,000 capital ships and 5,000 support vessels," a general replied. "Then we will send all of them," Emperor Vartox said. "We will send them all at once. We will crush the humans. We will destroy their colonies, their space stations, their planets. We will make sure that in 1,000 years, no one remembers that humans ever existed. We will burn them from history itself." The military commanders looked at each other. This was a massive commitment. This would cost enormous resources. But they did not argue. The emperor had spoken. Across the Vithelian Empire, the military mobilization began. Shipyards that had been quiet for centuries suddenly came alive. Weapons were loaded onto ships. Soldiers were gathered and transported. The greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen was being assembled, and they were coming to destroy humanity. Admiral Parkman received intelligence reports about the Vithelian mobilization 3 weeks later. When he read the numbers, he felt a chill run through his body. Over 1,000 Vithelian capital ships, 5,000 support vessels. It was impossible. No military force could stand against that. But humanity had to try. He called an emergency meeting of all military commanders. Using communication systems that spanned billions of miles, leaders from Earth, from the colonies, from the space stations, all came together. General Hyun-Soo appeared on the screen from Mars. "The Vithelians are sending their entire military," Admiral Parkman said quietly. "Everything they have. We have perhaps 2 months before they arrive. Then we have 2 months to prepare," General Hyun-Soo replied. "Dr. Lee-ji, how many ships do we have completed?" Dr. Lee-ji appeared on the screen from her factory. Her face looked tired. She had not slept properly in weeks. "We have 15,000 fighters, and we are building more. If I push my teams even harder, we can have 20,000 by the time they arrive." "And what about the frequency weapon?" Hyun-Soo asked Dr. Eunhae. "The frequency weapon works perfectly," Eunhae said. But there is a problem. We can only generate one frequency at a time. If the Vithelians have different shield frequencies on different ships, we will only be able to break through some of them. Then we find out what frequencies they have, Hyun-soo said. We study every Vithelian ship, every Vithelian technology. We find every weakness, every single one. We have 2 months. We will use them. The human military moved into overdrive. Factories worked double shifts, then triple shifts, then around the clock. Pilots trained in simulations that ran thousands of times per day. Scientists studied every piece of Vithelian data, looking for patterns, looking for weaknesses. Princess Ji-woo was a diplomat, not a soldier. She had spent her life trying to create peace between different human governments. Now she had an idea that nobody liked, but she believed it might work. I want to send a message to the Vithelian Empire, she told Admiral Park Min. A message of peace. A message asking them to negotiate, instead of destroy. Admiral Park Min looked at her like she was crazy. They will never negotiate. Maybe they will not, Ji-woo said. But if there is any chance, we must take it. Admiral Park Min thought about this. He thought about the millions of people who would die if war came. All right, he said finally. You can send your message, but we will continue to prepare for war. Princess Ji-woo wrote the message by hand. She wrote about the possibility of peace. She wrote about coexistence. She wrote about understanding between species. She sent it across the vast distances of space to the Vithelian Empire. The message reached Emperor Vartox in his throne room. He read it once. Then he read it again. Then he did something that no alien diplomat had ever seen. He laughed. He laughed so hard that his 8 eyes closed completely. They ask for peace. He said to his commanders, they are sending us a diplomat to discuss peace, while we send our entire military to destroy them. What should we do? Asked a general. Kill her, Emperor Vartox said simply. Execute the diplomat. Send her head back to the humans with a message. Tell them that the Vithelian Empire does not negotiate with insects. Tell them that we will destroy them completely. Tell them that their final hours approach. When the response came back to humanity, it was Princess Ji-woo's death sentence. She had known the risk. She had volunteered anyway. She had believed that there might be a chance for peace. There was not. When Admiral Park Min told her that Emperor Vartox had refused to negotiate, Ji-woo's face showed no surprise, only sadness. Then we prepare to destroy them, she said. But inside the military command centers, the plans were already being made. General Hyun-soo was doing something bold, something dangerous. He was planning not just to win the coming battle, he was planning to win the entire war. We cannot defeat 1,000 Vithelian capital ships with 20,000 fighters, he told his commanders. But we can do something else. We can make their victory so expensive, so painful, that they will break. We can attack them not just in space, but on their planets, in their systems, everywhere. We can make them bleed until they stop fighting. The human military began preparations for a war of attrition. A war that would last years. A war that would require sacrifice on a scale that humans had never known. The Vithelian fleet was coming. In weeks, they would arrive. And when they did, the galaxy would shake. Dr. Liji pushed her teams harder. 20,000 ships became 25,000, 30,000, 40,000. The factories worked until workers collapsed from exhaustion. Then they were replaced, and the work continued. Dr. Eun-hye discovered 5 different Vithelian shield frequencies. She developed weapons that could break through each one. She did not know if it would be enough, but it was the best humanity could do. General Hyun-soo studied every aspect of the Vithelian culture, their history, their tactics, their weaknesses. He began to see patterns. He began to understand how the Vithelians thought, and he began to understand how to beat them. The countdown continued. Weeks became days. Days became hours. The Vithelian Empire was coming. They did not know that humanity was ready. They did not know that an entire species had united against them. They did not know that they were about to suffer defeat on a scale that would shock the entire galaxy. They came as conquerors. They would leave as ghosts. Squadron leader Min Ho was a pilot. At only 28 years old, he was already becoming the most skilled fighter pilot in the human fleet. His reflexes were perfect. His mind was sharp, and his will to survive was stronger than anything the Vithelians had ever encountered. The first battle of the true war began on a cold morning in space, far from any star. The Vithelian fleet arrived in human territory and found the human fighters already waiting for them. This time, humanity was not trying to defend a colony. This time, humanity was attacking. Min Ho flew his fighter in formation with 1,000 other pilots. His radio crackled with the voices of other squadron leaders. Everyone was calm. Everyone was ready. All fighters, engage, General Hyun-soo commanded from the Mars Command Center. The battle exploded into life. Min Ho accelerated his fighter toward the nearest Vithelian capital ship. He flew directly at it. Then, at the last second, he banked hard to the side. Energy beams shot past him. He returned fire, his weapons hitting the Vithelian shields. The shield held. But Min Ho was ready for this. Dr. Yoonhae's frequency weapon was activated by radio signal from the command center. The shield on that section of the Vithelian ship collapsed. Min Ho and 50 other pilots immediately fired everything they had. Missiles struck the Vithelian hull. Weapons tore through armor. The Vithelian ship took massive damage, and it was only the beginning. Across the entire battlefield, the same thing was happening. Hundreds of human fighter pilots were attacking dozens of Vithelian capital ships. The Vithelians had more firepower, but they could not aim it fast enough. The human fighters were too small, too quick, too numerous. Commander Kyung-soo, who was commanding one of the Vithelian capital ships from his rebuilt vessel, watched the battle with growing horror. He had seen the first engagement. He had warned the Emperor that the humans were dangerous, but nobody had listened. Now the humans were everywhere. They attacked from multiple angles. They used their small size as a weapon. When the Vithelian ships tried to concentrate their fire on one area, the humans simply moved to attack a different area. "We are taking too many casualties," reported a Vithelian officer. "Concentrate fire on the human command ships," Commander Kyung-soo ordered. "Destroy their leadership. Without command, they will fall apart." But the human command ships were not visible. They were hidden on distant asteroids, protected by shield generators that humans had built specifically for this purpose. The first day of the battle ended with the loss of 3 Vithelian capital ships. It was not a large number compared to the Vithelian fleet, but it was a shock. The Vithelians were not used to losing. Min Ho landed his fighter on a carrier ship to refuel and reload. His hands were shaking slightly from adrenaline. He had fired every weapon he had and survived. Around him, other pilots were doing the same. Some of their fighters had not returned. Those pilots were gone. "We lost 200 ships today," his commanding officer told him. "How many Vithelian ships?" Min Ho asked. 3 capital ships? Maybe 50 support vessels." Min Ho did the math in his head. 50 human lives for every Vithelian death. It was not a good trade. But it was a trade humanity could make. The humans had 40,000 ships. The Vithelians had 1,000 capital ships and 5,000 support vessels. If they kept fighting like this, humanity could win. It would take time. People would die. But humanity could win. That understanding spread through the human military like wildfire. Day after day, the battles continued. Every time the humans attacked, they destroyed a few Vithelian ships. Every time the Vithelians counterattacked, they destroyed many human ships. But there were always more human ships coming. More and more and more. General Hyun-soo was implementing a strategy that had never been used before. He was using human pilots like ammunition. He was sending thousands of them at the Vithilians, knowing that many would not return. But he was destroying the Vithilian fleet faster than they could replace the losses. Minho flew mission after mission. His fighter had been repaired and refueled so many times that he had lost count. He had survived 37 combat engagements. He had shot down 42 Vithilian fighters. He had damaged several Vithilian capital ships. He was becoming a legend. Other pilots followed his lead. They became bolder. They took bigger risks. And they survived. Each battle taught them something new about the Vithilians. They learned that Vithilian ships turned slowly. They learned that Vithilian weapons took time to recharge. They learned that Vithilian pilots were strong, but not as adaptable as human pilots. They learned every weakness and they exploited every one. But the Vithilians were learning too. They were adapting their tactics. They were using their advantages more effectively. The rate of human losses increased. 3 months into the war, Dr. Han-A made a breakthrough. She was analyzing Vithilian communications, and she broke their encryption codes. Suddenly, humanity could hear everything the Vithilians were saying. They could predict their movements. They could set ambushes. The Vithilian military command did not know that their communications were compromised. They continued to use the same codes, thinking they were secure. And humanity used that advantage ruthlessly. Battles that should have been victories for the Vithilians turned into defeats because humanity knew their plans in advance. Vithilian ships that thought they were safe were attacked from unexpected directions. The morale of the Vithilian military began to crack. Commander Kyung-Soo sent a message directly to Emperor Vartox. "We are losing this war," he said directly. "The humans are too adaptable. They fight in ways we do not expect. They have intelligence about our movements. We cannot win through military superiority alone." The response from Emperor Vartox was immediate and cold. "You are a fool if you believe we are losing. We are still destroying 10 human ships for every Vithilian loss. We are still winning. Continue the attack." But the Emperor was wrong. The math had changed. The Vithilians had 1,000 capital ships at the beginning of the war. After 3 months, they had 800. The humans had started with 40,000 fighters. After 3 months, they had built 50,000 more, replacing their losses and adding to their strength. The Vithilians were getting weaker. Humanity was getting stronger. Minho was promoted to wing commander. He now led 5,000 pilots in coordinated attacks against the Vithilian fleet. He was only 29 years old, but he was one of the most experienced combat pilots alive. "They are breaking," he reported to General Hyun-soo. "The Vithilians are retreating from 3 sectors. They are consolidating their forces in a smaller region. They are preparing a final stand," Hyun-soo said. "They will gather all their remaining ships and try to win one massive battle. This is our opportunity." The human military prepared for what would be the largest battle of the war. 60,000 human fighters gathered in one location. The remaining Vithilian capital ships, along with all their support vessels, prepared to meet them. The battle would decide the fate of 2 civilizations. But before the final clash, something happened that nobody expected. A Vithilian commander named Tae-woo, who had been studying the human military, came to understand what was happening. He realized that the Vithilians were going to lose. He realized that continuing to fight would only mean more death. He sent a message to Admiral Parkman. "I am prepared to surrender," he said. "But the Emperor will not accept surrender. He will order us all to fight to the death. Perhaps there is another way." Admiral Parkman listened to the proposal. It was bold. It was dangerous. But it might just work. The final confrontation was approaching. The tide had turned. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. Humanity was fighting to win. And the Vithilians, for the first time in their long history, were fighting because they had no choice.